The San Jose Sharks are reportedly interested in Keandre Miller. Should they look to right a 2018 wrong?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everyday, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be exploring if Keandre Miller could help be an answer for the San Jose Sharks. We're going to look at why the Rangers are interested in trading Keandre Miller, what he would bring to the San Jose Sharks, and of course, what a trade would look like, and potentially what a new contract would look like. So Keandre Miller, he is left-handed. I can already feel it. I can feel the eye rolls. I can feel like anytime I talk about a defenseman, the first thing people ask is he left-handed or right-handed? Left-handed. Let's just get there. But I'm just going what people are reporting. The fourth period on their trade watch list 3.0 had Keandre Miller 28th overall, with teams reportedly linked Vancouver, Anaheim, San Jose. The Rangers are still listening on everyone, even though they've climbed back to the playoff race, are willing to package players up in the right deals. Miller's name is still out there. He's set to become an RFA with arbitration rights this summer. So put a pin in that right there. So Keandre Miller, former 2018 first round pick, of course, was picked 22nd overall, one pick after Ryan Merkley and the infamous Merkley window. RIP Merkley window. I think it's shut at this point. But a lot of Sharks fans, right, have kind of tracked Keandre Miller, and Keandre Miller has turned out to be a really nice NHL defenseman for the New York Rangers. Of course, we know the Rangers this year haven't had the season that they were expecting. This team really kind of fell apart early. Like we know, they've kind of climbed back into the playoff picture, in going into, but we've seen them make some big moves this season, right? Dumping off Jacob Trouba. Of course, there's a whole Barclay Goodrow incident this summer. They acquired JT Miller before the Four Nations break. Like, it's been a team that has done a lot of stuff this season, and I think they're kind of trying to do a retool on the fly. Especially when you have Panarin, you just signed Shesterkin for 8 years at a lot of money. Like, this team still believes in its core, but it feels like it needs to kind of swap some pieces out. And I think that right there is a big reason why Keandre Miller might be available. That and the price. So again, Keandre Miller is an RFA with arbitration rights after this season. He currently makes he's on last year of his deal at $3.872 million with arbitration rights. His qualifying offer. So this is like basically the minimum amount, unless he signs a long-term extension, but the minimum, remember the Timo Meier, right? The $10 million qualifying offer, if you remember that. That would be how much the Sharks would have to pay him. The Rangers would have to, if they just want to sign him for a 1-year deal, his qualifying offer is $4,646,000. So we'll just say $4.6 million. So that's a nice little raise from 3.8 to $4.6 million. And he has arbitration rights. So where if he can always go and, kind of go before they have like a third party, he can kind of go, him and his agent can make the case for more, like the NHL can make, or the Rangers can make the case for kind of what, and they usually kind of meet in the middle. Usually these deals kind of get hammered, but still, this is kind of the first real bargaining Keandre Miller can have. But still 4.6. So even if it's just a qualifying offer of $4.6 million, which we know the cap's going to go up, et cetera, $4.6 million doesn't feel too bad. But then you look at the Rangers cap situation, and I think this is where it becomes crystal clear. The Rangers right now are expected to have a projected cap hit of $76.8 million with a cap again at 95.5. Okay, that leaves them at 18.7 million in cap space. Okay, that's not too bad. They have 12 of 23 guys signed. That's where you come to issues, where the Rangers have a lot of guys who are starting to kind of get phased out here. And like not usually like the biggest names type of players, but that's just still more players you have to sign. And even if you sign Miller at the 4.6 million qualifying offer, that leaves you with 11 people to sign at, 13-ish million dollars. You're kind of, and if the vet min is, we'll just say 800,000, I think it's still going to be 775 or 800, whatever it is. Like you're signing a bunch of vet min guys to kind of build the rest of your roster, right? And Sharks fans remember, think of that 2019-2020 season where the Sharks were really tight to the cap and they had to kind of rely on a lot of these veteran guys that are, or younger players who are maybe not quite ready to be there, but they're cheap. And you're just hoping that your veterans can kind of lead the way. And of course, we all know what happened, right? The Sharks fell apart, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for the Sharks. For the Rangers, who again, like you still have Adam Fox for the next 3 seasons after this one with a no move clause. You just signed William Borgen to a new deal that kicks in next year. You have Shesterkin, whose new deal kicks in next year at $11.5 million for the next 8 years. You have Panarin, who's going to be entering the last year of his deal. Like JT Mill, like you have a lot of dudes who are still going to be here, still making a lot of money. So you need to try to kind of build the best you can around them. And yes, they, maybe Gabe Perreault, et cetera, but still, if you are the Rangers, do you want to tie up $4.6 million to Keandre Miller? Or do you maybe see if we can get something for him, not have to pay him this contract? And again, 4.6 is just a qualifying offer. Miller is going to be looking for something more, right? Like Miller is going to be like, he's entering that long-term deal range now where he's going to, and we'll talk about what that deal looks like. But 4.6 is like the minimum that he's getting. He could be asking for a lot more. So if you're the Rangers, do you want to kind of put your eggs in the Miller basket right now? Or would you rather maybe go see if we can get like 80% of Miller's production at 50% the cost, right? And I think that's kind of the route they're looking for, is we'd rather kind of spread out our resources, especially if we're going to be one of the teams that still has, a little bit tight to the cap. And we want to still try to compete, right? You didn't just sign Shesterkin. You're going to want to have to try to, prove to Panarin that, hey, we want you back. We're like, this is a winning team, et cetera, like, and eventually pay Panarin probably, 13, 14, depending, what Rantanen gets or whatever. Like Panarin's going to be up there amongst the highly, top paid top paid guys here soon. So the Rangers have a lot of work to do if they want to try to keep this group together. And I think that's their thinking, is as much as we like Keandre Miller or JT Miller, they like JT Miller, of course, but as much as we like Keandre Miller, it may not be smart for us to lock him up to this type of deal, and especially when we're going to have so many other needs to try to take care of. So let's look at what the Sharks would be getting out of K'Andre Miller if they were to acquire him. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I personally love the ones with the shell. I like, of course, having to work for it a little bit, but the crack, so satisfying with every shell. Plus, when you're done, you build little walls with them, which I like to do. Then you can hide your little Lego minifigures behind there. But yeah, they got you covered with, if you don't like the shells, they have a variety of flavor, a bunch of great stuff. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, before we continue, learn more about K'Andre Miller, what he would bring, et cetera, look at a bit of a decline this year. Do want to, of course, thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Now is a perfect time. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, especially if you're on YouTube. We got plenty of great stuff coming up as we're going to be, jumping back into the actual season here soon. We have more draft profiles. We'll continue to start looking at free agents, as I think the Sharks, Sharks have $20 million that they're going to have to spend just to get to the floor. So we'll look plenty of great stuff to look at, and more prospect coverage, because that's what the people want. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, again, subscribe on YouTube as well. Okay, K'Andre Miller. What would the Sharks be getting with him? So Miller, 6'5", 210, left-handed defenseman, just turned 25 last month. Like I said, 1 year left on his contract at $3.872 million AAV. This season with the Rangers, 49 games, 4 goals, 9 assists, 77 shots on goal, playing 21.53 average time on ice a night. Corsi for 51.31, goals for 45.88. Not the most offensively gifted guy, or not, I want to say gifted, but that's just not his role, right? He's definitely not kind of scoring at the same rate as he was previous years. 2 years ago, he has a career high with 43 points in 79 games, which is pretty respectable. 9 goals, 34 assists. Last year, 80 games, he had 8 goals, 22 assists for 30 points. You saw a bit of a decline with him playing with Jacob Trouba last season. And I know in the playoffs, that was a huge, the Miller-Trouba combo. Like if you talk to any Rangers fans, I think it gives them a little bit, there's some scarring there still. But this season, the offensive production isn't the same. Despite the minute, like he's been pretty consistent with his average time on ice. This year, like I said, 21.53. Last year, 21.34. The year before that, 21.57. Like this dude plays basically under 22 minutes a night, and he's been like that since he stepped in the NHL at the age of 21, where he's going to give you 21 to 22 minutes a night. Like I said, this year the offensive production isn't quite there. 4 even strength goals. His shooting percentage is a touchdown. It's at 5.2% when his career average is usually in the 8% range. So bit of a touch. So there might be a little bit of a rebound there when it comes to production. But again, like this Rangers team is also not the same. And the way he's utilized, which we'll get to in a second, doesn't really speak to kind of a lot of production for him. So looking at his evolving hockey card from this season, playing first pairing minutes, 59 percentile, 73 percentile offense. So he's actually does produce expected goals above replacement. Like he's really good at, the analytics suggest that he is good at kind of playing offensively, but just doesn't score as much as you would expect. The defense has really taken a dive this year, and we'll look at his 3 years here in a second, as he's a 41% defensive, plays a bunch of shorthanded minutes, is very good on the penalty kill, doesn't get too much power play time, and I think for the Sharks, like, they might go elsewhere with the power play, just with guys like Wallman and then Mook Madulan and Thompson, I think, are a little bit more equipped to run the power play than Keandre Miller, but he would be a huge boost to the Sharks penalty kill, which has kind of taken a dip this year. So the past 3 years, though, you've seen the defense be much better. The 3 years, same thing, playing first top pairing minutes, 78th percentile players, 75th percentile offensively, 67th percentile defensively. So is it the Ranger? Like, is it Miller starting to slip at the age of 25? Is it maybe a down season? I think that's the big question, because if you like everything else looks about the same, but the goals above replacement have really fallen off a cliff this year compared to other seasons. So I think that's a kind of the big thing you'd have to look at is 1 year, or is this signs of something worse coming? Looking at his hockey stat cards from this season, plus 1.1 offensive rating, which is like 75th percentile, minus 2.5 defensive rating, which is like 10th percentile. His net rating is minus 1.4, which is kind of like 40th percentile. So definitely not having the same sort of impact this year as we have seen in other years, but still super awesome on the PK. So usage chart. So this is something to kind of keep in mind, is how he is actually utilized. And of all the Rangers defensemen, he gets the toughest assignments, where he is facing the toughest opponents and kind of the worst position. Like, he's not getting as much offensive zone draw. Again, right? Adam Fox is going to get a bunch of offensive zone draws because Adam Fox is amazing. But Keandre Miller is the guy, like, getting all the tough assignments there. So is that the reason why? Maybe his defensive stats, because he's been the one getting all this extremely tough assignments, and the Rangers just aren't as good this year. So maybe that kind of kicks down his metrics of, right, you're getting tough assignments, your team's not as good as around you. Maybe you've had a little bit of a not as good, but he's still producing pretty well, at least again when it comes to the Corsi and the goals for, like, those are still, pretty reasonable, especially the Corsi percentage. Like, those are still pretty reasonable. And again, the Rangers team is better than the Sharks team, but still not the same team that we've kind of expected, where, one of the best teams in the in the entire Eastern Conference. So I am curious to see, again, what is it? It's very much a chicken and egg type of situation. For Miller this year, he has had kind of looking at his partners. He's played a lot with Fox. He's played the most with Will Borgen. Started the season with Trouba. That, of course, didn't go well. Played with some with Fox. He's been playing with Will Borgen this season. And, like, those two playing together have been pretty solid for the Rangers. So those two combined have 50.2% Corsi for. They have 14 goals for, 16 goals against, so -2. But again, like, I'm not a big plus minus guy, because somebody else could do something that leads to a goal, or somebody else could do something awesome that leads, like, there's a lot of stuff happening on the ice that you may not have anything to do with. So Miller, again, does face the toughest competition among all the Rangers forwards. Looking at his all stat cards, so kind of what he does best. And to be honest, I was a little disappointed. The offense, not super great. The zone entry, he struggles with getting the puck in the zone. He's pretty good at kind of getting the puck going out of his own zone, like kind of tracking or hunting down the puck and kind of getting going forward. Zone entry defense is a little, like, a little not what you would expect to see, especially for a 6'5" guy. As big as he is, like a lot of guys are able to carry the puck in on him, which is a little disappointing there. So again, chicken or egg type of situation. But I think kind of, especially if you look at some of the other defensemen we talked about, right? Bowen Byram, Noah Dobson. He is the most defensive of all those three guys. And his analytics definitely lean that way. And I don't know if there's the offensive upside there. So I do have a solution, though, that might help multiple parties. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. All right. Before we finish up with K'Andre Miller, talk about a potential trade and look at what a contract would look like. Let's do. Actually, sorry. When you guys are done with this episode, go check out one of the other great shows here at the Locked On Network. Of course, you have Locked On Fantasy Hockey. So if your fantasy hockey team needs some help, they got you covered there. Or check out any of the shows here in the Bay Area. Locked On Niners, Locked On Warriors, Locked On A's, Locked On Giants. Plenty of great stuff here. The Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. All right. K'Andre Miller. What would he get in a trade? And this is the thing that it's tough to gauge with the Rangers, right? Are they just using this year as a reset where maybe they want to just kind of gather some assets, clear their books, maybe get cost-controlled players? Do they want to do something like that and kind of set themselves up to have a big summer? Do they want to tinker on the fly and see if they can, like, I don't expect them to be like, we want prospects, right? Because like getting a prospect isn't helping you win right now. And this Rangers team, again, even if they take a step back this year, I still think they want to be really competitive as soon as next year, especially with all the dudes you've signed for a long time. Like, you don't want to waste those seasons. So if they wanted to be competitive, if they want to just gather assets, he is a former first round pick. Maybe he is an RFA. We know the contract is going to be sizable. Are you looking at maybe the Sharks' second round pick as like a starting point, which is going to be a very high second round pick? And then that would give the Rangers, who don't have their own first round pick, that would give them something to do, something that they can use in the future. Maybe the Dallas pick. But again, like talking to our friend Cam Robinson, like everybody knows this draft is bad and these picks aren't as valuable as other seasons. So do the Rangers want to do that? Maybe, maybe not. One solution I came up with, and it might be too crazy, but I'm just going to talk about it and see if it makes sense. But what if you just trade Mario Ferraro for K'Andre Miller? And of course, Rangers fans are going to be like, well, Ferraro is nowhere near as good as Miller. Yeah, Miller's a better player. But Mario Ferraro is cost controlled for this season and next season at $3.25 million. Again, K'Andre Miller is going to be making most likely 4.6, if not more, next year. And going back to what I said at the beginning, right? Do you want a guy who's maybe 80% as good, but costs you about half as much? That way you can use your money elsewhere, right? Left-handed player. Mario Ferraro is a year older. Mario Ferraro is probably he's a mid-second round pick. He's 49th overall. K'Andre Miller, late first round pick, 22nd overall. Like, draft pedigree's close enough-ish. They've been in the league about the same amount of time. You can kind of, yes, K'Andre Miller's a better player than Mario Ferraro, but if you're the Rangers, having that, at least like he's paid for this season and next year, You know exactly what he is going to be. Like, we don't have to, we don't have to open up the checkbook at least for another season, and then you can kind of figure things out that year after that season. Again, I don't know if the Rangers want to do that, but what if you just did that, and then if you're the Sharks, you can gives you some options. So you could either sign him to the qualifying offer 4.6, or you could look to sign him long term. AFP Analytics with their mid-season projections. So yeah, 4.6 the qualifying offer, or they have him as a 6-year deal at 5.3 million. So basically 6 years at 32. We'll just say that. $32 million, which that's a lot. That's a lot for defensive guy who's not like a super up there defensive guy. So if the Sharks were to trade for him, I would probably just do the qualifying offer. Like, I don't think I would be in the business of trying to sign him long term right now. I would do the qualifying offer for a season and then kind of go from there, because you can either maybe he rebounds, but you feel like he's not going to be what you want, and then you can flip him at next year's trade deadline, especially when you have a retention slot open, and you could eat half of that. So a $4.6 million contract becomes a $2.3 million contract. You can get yourself a really nice pick in the 2026 draft, which is a much better draft. So you're investing now, and almost like the Mackenzie Blackwood, maybe not going from a 6th-round pick to a 2nd-round pick, but you're investing in a player who's going to have all the runway in the world to be your kind of your best, and maybe in a better situation, maybe in a just different situation. Miller can kind of rebound and rehabilitate his, kind of his image in his career. Or if he's awesome, you can sign him to a new deal. Like, I don't know. I'm out of the 3 we've talked about, I'm probably lowest on Miller, because I just don't think he fills the need. And yes, the Sharks just need better defensive players. And Keandre Miller is a better defensive player than most of the Sharks defensemen, right? I'd probably put like Wallman 1 and then probably Miller 2 if you were to put them all in there, just because. And again, I also skew to liking offensive defensemen. So, but like, I think if you're going to make a trade, like I'd rather shoot for somebody who's helps what the team needs the most. And what the team needs the most is somebody who can just get the puck out of their own zone. I think it's easier to find what Keandre Miller does. Not as good as what he does. Again, I'm not trying to say like Keandre Miller is a good player. I just think it's easier to find what he does at 80% at like half the cost. And especially if you're looking to trade Mario Ferraro, then maybe like, okay, we're upgrading on Mario Ferraro, and you can kind of talk me into that a little bit. But I think this is the one out of like the 3 that we've talked about for guys who are potentially available, I think this is the one I would struggle with the most, because I don't think he solves the Sharks' biggest need on the blue line. The biggest need, again, is getting guys who can just get the puck going the other way and do it on a high rate successfully. And Keandre Miller is a good defenseman. He's just not the right defenseman, I think, for what the Sharks have. I think I'd rather let Muka Madulin continue his development. I'd rather let Jack Thompson or open the lane up for Sam Dickinson or some of these other guys who are going to be making an impact here in the next couple of years, than to tie up Keandre Miller for 5 years or 6 years at 5 plus whatever it was for season. So this one, like, again, I started the show. Can they right a 2018 wrong? I just don't think it's the right time. I just don't think he's the right player for what the Sharks are looking for right now. Great player. But if I was the Rangers, maybe you look to swing him to a contender who is desperate for that last piece, and see if you can pry like an NHL ready prospect back, a guy who's cost controlled, who's ready to make an impact. Maybe it's something like that, but we'll see. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. We're diving back into the prospect reef. So going to have another prospect episode tomorrow. So make sure you guys are following wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.